protect me. His mother answers him, I love you, and it really means you've been a good boy. And as years go by, true love will never die.
Hey guys, this is Liam back, and I want to give you guys a few updates on how the van project is going. So a few months ago, I bought an orange 1982 or 3, I forget, Dodge Ram van, maxi van to turn into a camper. Now, Carrie and I have been working very hard to bring it to where it is now, so I'm going to give you guys a little picture display to show you how progress is going. It's just been so busy working on the van that it's been hard to film as I'm doing it, and especially because there's a lot of like drying with a lot of the stuff I'm doing, like paint. But I wanted to show you guys the progress and how I did it nonetheless. So we'll start here by looking at one of the things that I added, which is we got a fantastic fan, as you can see here in the box. Now, the space above, the space in the roof was like really, really rusted and corroded before. So what I ended up doing was that the picture doesn't show it here very well, but it was very rusted along one of the corners especially. So I took my angle grinder with a wire brush attachment, and I just scratched away all the rust I could. Now what was really good is that underneath that rust there was actually solid metal. So I just primered over it to make sure that it had once after scratching away the rust, I primered over it to make sure that it wouldn't rust again, and sealed up any holes that were there, but it was actually fine metal underneath. It can be intimidating to see rust like that, but basically if you can't poke your finger through it, it's fine, and it will hold the vent that you need. So just to look at the next picture here, we have there the fan installed. It took us a little bit of time to install it, a lot of prep work as you can see, but it went in pretty well. We got some really good gutter seal is what we used. My dad really recommended that. He says that it's just really, really good against water because it's meant to be used in water. And we just put a bead all the way around the edge, and we screwed it in with self-drilling screws, and then we caulked over the screws to prevent those from leaking, and it doesn't leak, so hopefully it stays. Now the next thing that I did was I bought a set of tires for the van. Now as you guys can see here, the type of tires that this van uses are very large E-rated tires, or 10 plies. Because this is a 1-ton van, it has I think like a 7,000 kilogram gross vehicle weight rating. It's a pretty heavy duty vehicle. It requires much heavier duty tires than a normal car. So you can see here that that's my Plymouth Valiant's tires next to the big van. So ordinarily they're very expensive. They're about like $250 a tire. That's the cheapest you can buy E-rated tires new here in Canada. So I was really unwilling to pay that, and I was kind of hemming and hawing. We went to this place A1 Tire here in town though, and they actually sell used tires, and I found a really nice set of the same size, because my front tires were okay, my back ones were really, really coming apart, and they shook the van every time you drove. So we found a set that was the same size as the front tires. They had 2 of them. They were quote-unquote used, but they were the one tire was about 95% good in terms of its tread depth, and the other one was actually 100% new. I could tell. It had still like the little rubber nubs on it and stuff. And I assume it was used as a spare tire. So we got them to mount that, and they mounted and installed both of them for I think $200 or something like that, like $100 a tire or something like that, maybe 250. I kind of forget, but I basically got 2 tires for the price of 1 installed. So I was very happy about that, and they did a really great job. And here's a couple pictures of the van, really dirty inside. I had to clean it all out because for the next step, I was going to be painting the interior of the van and cleaning it up. This van was in really, really bad shape when I bought it and very dirty inside, so it was quite a long step to even get it this clean, but I took out all those tools and stuff to do the next painting steps. You see there the condition of the rubber mats underneath the plywood that was on the floor. Yeah, and the sills are the inner sills that you step into the van are very scratched up, as you can see, which is a concern because you look at that every time. Yeah, here you can see I've removed some of the rubber mats that were on the floor. And what I found in the maxi van portion at the back of the van was a decent amount of rust, and some of it actually poking through, and some of it with pretty weak metal. So I scraped all of that off with the angle grinder once again and just primered over it. It doesn't have to look pretty, but I wanted it covered just to prevent it from corroding in the future. There you can see pulling up the rubber mats and cleaning under them. There I primered the rear sill, which shows even when the rubber mats are down. That was preparing it for painting. That's the side sill, what it looked like before. As you can see, very scratched with some spots of rust, but fundamentally good metal underneath. Here you can see more of the prep work. And we ended up primering that side sill as well. All of the sills in the van ended up getting painted, and I just want to show that to you guys here. Now, once I'd had those primered, I wanted to wash the back of the van out really well, so we put it on just an incline on the driveway and washed it all out with soap and brushes and water, and just let it all drain out for a couple of hours. It is recommended to disconnect the battery if you're going to do that. And there you can see my paint gun where I'd sprayed the rear sills. Pretty glossy finish with a spray gun. If you use a brush, you're not going to get that nice of a finish, but I really wanted the rear sill and side sill after painting them to look like brand new, because you see those every time you enter and leave the van. So I thought it was subconsciously a really good place to start to make the van look nice. And I did the same with the front sills as well. They were also very scratched up, so I cleaned them up and primered them, and then did a final paint job, as you can see, and they ended up looking great. This paint probably won't be as durable as the actual paint, but it's a good idea to do it anyway. The wheels were redone as well, as you can see, to get them all matching in the cream color of the van. Now the van, when I bought it, it had this black rock guard paint all the way around that the guy had painted. He said he didn't like the orange, but that's not an original feature of the van, that black rock guard. So for the exterior paint repairs, I wanted to remove it first and see what the condition of the metal was underneath that. So for the last couple months, I've been slowly removing, using just regular paint thinner, the spray bomb rock guard paint that the guy had put all around. As you can see, here was the process of that. And surprisingly enough, underneath that black rock guard, the paint wasn't in all that bad a shape, as you can see. After slowly removing it off the passenger side, it was largely fine, the metal underneath, and the paint as well. Here you can see me touching up a few of the scratches that were on the passenger side halfway through. But with a few more coats, I got it looking like this, where it ended up, I mean, looking very, very stock. I'll maybe run another couple coats later, but yeah. This here is the driver's side. Now, the driver's side was in quite a bit worse condition. As you can see in this picture, these are just pictures from one of my last videos because I don't have a lot of pictures of the bad side of the van. But you can see, if you look at the lower edge of the driver's side of the van, there's a giant metal piece of sheet metal that was self-drilled using self-drilling screws into the side of the van. And my concern was that was painted over in black, and I was thinking I might leave it, thinking I might take it off. But the problem is that I definitely decided that I wanted the black paint gone because it's not original to the van and kind of looks bad and was scratched up itself. So I figured, why don't I just get rid of the black paint and start from orange and repair the orange rather than repair this ugly black paint. So what I decided was that, okay, I definitely want the black paint gone, and it takes a while to remove it because it's fairly thick. So why don't I just remove this metal piece of sheet entirely, because that'll take off like half of the black paint from the driver's side. So I did that, and we'll take a look here at how it looked underneath. Obviously, it was covering rust, and I didn't know how much it was covering. Now, up here near the door, it's not that bad. As you move back toward the wheel, it does begin to be some pretty large exterior rust, but not structural rust, thankfully, so it's repairable. The guy had also primered over some big splotches on these on the doors and stuff like that, and as you can see, the metal underneath was not that bad, but was missing paint. So I took my spray gun again and sprayed over those with several coats, just thin one at a time, and I ended up with a really good result. As you can see, in most spots you can't even see that it was ever repainted, and it looks awesome. After that, I then removed the black paint from the lower quarters of the van, and I still have to do another few coats of orange paint along the bottom. The bumper was another difficult subject because it had also been painted black, and now that all the black was removed, I really wanted that gone because it didn't match anything anymore. But underneath, the bumper appears to have actually never been painted because it was made out of galvanized steel, and it was just left in its natural finish. What my thinking was to instead, because I bought a can of metal. Okay, so here's another interesting thing, is that automotive paint, which I went to an automotive store, they wanted to charge me about $250 for the orange color matched automotive paint with hardener and then with the correct type of thinner to use with it to spray through an HVLP spray gun. Now that's a lot of money, and this is very old automotive paint that doesn't use clear coat. So I don't know if this is the same in all countries, but I found a store that would mix me metal paint like that you'd use on a tractor or combine or piece of machinery. They called their brand of it Tremclad. It's very similar to Tremclad as far as I understand. As a matter of fact, I used actual Tremclad primer, oil-based primer. But they actually, from a piece of the car I gave them, which was the gas flap, they matched me an exact color match of the orange, which is how I got so incredibly close to the door's color. If you guys want to try this on your own vehicle, assuming it doesn't have clear coat paint, as long as you can get them a piece of metal that is the exact right color, they should be able to match it for you. And while I was there, I didn't give them a piece of white to match, but I just took their booklet and got a really close shade. So I matched the white as well. So my thinking was to paint the rear bumper white, and I was thinking that if I got a thick enough coat of paint, that it would probably look okay. But there was bare metal on the black paint, so I cleaned that off really well and primered it, as you can see here. And just as you can see there, I masked off really well the area around the rear bumper and just went to town on it and sprayed it like crazy. There you can see how thick the paint is. You can't see any black through it. And ended up using a decent amount of paint, but I still have lots left. There's the rear bumper again. Very close color match, actually, for the cream color on the roof. Now, the next step was doing mechanical issues on the van. It had not been very well maintained, I could see, and had, like, you know, its old ballast resistor hanging there. So I replaced that with a newer one from my brown car that I took. Also, the spark plug wires were really, really bad, just hanging against the valve cover, as you can see. So I replaced them with a newer set of spark plug wires that were also very carefully, I made little harnesses for them and just made sure they weren't touching either each other or any metal pieces. It was kind of dark when I took this photo, but you can see it there. And the vehicle runs a lot better now. So I'm just going to I didn't take any pictures of this, but most Chryslers from this period, they use a really interesting type of, they're carbureted obviously from being from the 80s. So they can be a little bit finicky, but my experience is that one of these old 80s Mopars, when they're correctly set up, they drive perfectly. They drive like a modern car basically, aside from having to pump the gas when you start them and stuff like that. But this van really wasn't ever since I bought it. I was very concerned there was some deep mechanical problem, but it doesn't seem like there really was. What the problem was that was causing it basically to, it would start and idle. When I put it into gear, it would seem to want to die, especially as I started to press on the gas. And this was primarily when the engine was cold. So what I found is that in the air dish, maybe I can put a picture of what the air dishes look like on screen, but in the air dish, they have a flap that either pulls cold air from like the front of the car or pulls hot air from the close to the exhaust manifold, which is obviously very hot, even when the engine itself is cold because the exhaust is hot. Now, that little flapper, while I was playing around with it recently, I realized it wasn't working. So I traced how it worked to this little temperature switch that's inside the air dish, and supposedly you can't buy them new, which was really concerning. You have to look in a junkyard. But I thought, okay, well, what if I just try spraying its little passages with carb cleaner? That might get it to work. And it did amazingly. It actually right away started to work. So there was a little clog in it, presumably. So the van runs a lot better after that. Now, that's basically the updates on the van. I'll update you guys some more as I continue on the paint work and start to repair some of this rust and start to do the interior fittings on the camper, because it's really getting to the point where we're going to start working quite a bit on the inside. But I'll just leave you guys with this little picture here of when I went to the mall. I had to go to the gym, and I almost got banned from the mall while I was parked down there. Had a security guard come up to me, and he was really threatening to ban me. And it turned out he had made a wrong assumption about my van, that I was doing something not allowed with it. But I'll save that for another video, maybe for the next one. All right, guys, well, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. I have another video coming up about finishing the Plymouth Valiant's brake repairs, which was done a couple weeks ago. All right, talk to you guys later.